Good morning, fish keepers. Cam here from the fishroom.co.nz, and we've done it again. We've made it to Friday. Let's celebrate with coffee. That is an enjoyable coffee. Oh yeah, I'm going to enjoy that one. All right. So, not a heck of a lot on my book of things to talk about today. But as per normal, if there is something that anybody wants to talk about, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and we will discuss that while we're here. But the question that I have for everybody is, I'm playing around with some different lighting. Please tell me if the lighting is good or bad or acceptable or not. I can only sort of see it on my screen, so it's a little bit difficult to gauge whether or not it's any good or not. Good morning, Cameron. How are you doing, buddy? It's okay. You're only about 37 seconds late, so it's not the end of the world, buddy. Okay, so first of all, if you are an email subscriber, I would highly recommend that you check your emails, because we've sent out a couple of emails over the week that are well and truly worth looking at. There's some cool stuff inside of it. So if you're an email subscriber, there are some exclusive stuff going on for you at the moment. And if you're not an email subscriber, it is well and truly worth jumping on, because we do chuck out some exclusive stuff to your email subscribers on quite a regular basis. So get amongst that one. Secondly, I'll do a bit of an update of what's going on out the back or within the fish room itself. So the fish room to sell fish from is all up and running. We've got about half a dozen tanks running with fish in at the moment. The planted tanks are both going as well, so we're good to go. Good morning, Brian. How you doing? So the planted tanks are all good to go as well. And we've got a frozen freezer in there as well. So that side of the operation is running absolutely smoothly. We are good to go there. The shop itself is almost back to capacity as far as stocking levels go of what we wanted pre-move. There's a couple more things that need to come in. But for the best part, most of our dry goods are back good to go as well again. That leaves us to out the back in the factory type space of the building. That's where there's been a few delays. So I've done some water tests this morning on what was the quarantining holding rack system that we had in the last shop. It looks like that most of those tanks are very, very close to fully cycled. I don't think they'll be cycled for an order next week, but I think the week after we should be good to go. So I'm really excited about that. Fingers crossed. They took a little while to cycle because obviously with the move, they didn't really get the priority that they probably should have. I was missing a few plugs to get everything going. So I'm still using the same sponges that we used from the last shop, but because they weren't plugged in, having air on them for quite a long period of time because I didn't have enough plugs to get it all going. The air system wasn't going and stuff like that. Basically, all the good bacteria has died off, so it's kind of going through a recycle again. So we're very, very close to that being good to go again, and I think we should be good to go. Probably not this week, fingers crossed, but probably not this week. Probably the week after, we'll be able to get some more fish in, put them through a couple of week quarantine period, and then get them ready to go again for sale. So I'm very happy with that. It's taken a bit of time, but we are there, or very close to being there. The next thing that's happened out the back is I've set up my own shit tubs, and I'm sure you're going to say, what's an own shit tub and why are you swearing, Cam? So they are just little plant growing setups that I've got, predominantly for the more common or the more popular plants that we sell. Just in case we have an order come through and I make a mistake on my order and I don't order it, I've got the ability to essentially cut them fresh straight away and chuck them in the orders and away they go. So they'll be very limited on that, and it's purely just to save me in case I make a wee mistake. I've previously done this when we were operating out of my home and I had a greenhouse going out the back, and it worked really, really well. Because mistakes do happen, and it just is part and parcel of it, unfortunately. So if I've misordered something, underordered something, or maybe the suppliers have missed a bunch or something along those lines, at least with half a dozen more popular plants, we'll have them here. I'll be able to cut them off, band them up, and chuck them in, so there'll be less delays on orders. So that's what that is. So I'm pretty happy with that. Don't make a mistake, no problem. Well, If only I wasn't human and I didn't make mistakes, but it is what it is. So they're up and running. So we just started with a few plants. I've already had the tubs hanging around. It's a system that I've tried with before and it's worked pretty well. So we'll just continue to increase the numbers of what we've got, but only about half a dozen just in case plants. So I'm pretty happy with that. And again, hopefully it's just going to help the service just be improved just a smidgen. The corridors that came in last week or maybe the week before, I can't remember what it was, they're looking all really, really good. They're all chowing down. They're all putting on some size already, which is really good. They've just had a big feed of bloodworms and they've devoured it in no time. And it's really cool watching corridors chomp back on bloodworms. So yeah, they're looking really good. So they should be available to go as of next week. So there's around about 60 of them. And I will do a decent special on them as well. Again, if you've got any questions, please fire away with them. I'm more than happy to answer them. I really enjoyed last week's live stream, although it came out of a chaotic morning, but the conversation that was had with everybody was really good, and I very much enjoyed it. And so, yeah, if there is other questions people want to ask, fire away. And also, as I asked before, is the lighting okay? I'm just trialing a few bits and pieces, so if it's too dim, please let me know. If it's too bright, if it's not quite right, please shout out and I'll see what I can fiddle around with in the future. Some other stuff going on is we've got some limited edition stuff going into all of our bags or all of our orders that are being sent out at the moment. We've had these limited edition things before. They only lasted about 3 weeks, and I'm envisioning this will probably only last about 3 weeks as well. So get amongst that if you are looking for a few little freebies. It's nothing major, just more of a token of appreciation of people ordering from us. It is very much limited edition, so they won't last forever. So just a little freebie, just a way of saying thank you very much to everybody who is purchasing from us. So once they're gone, they'll be gone for probably another 6 months, 8 months, something like that. So yeah, get yourself a little freebie while you can. What's my prediction for tonight's Pakistan versus Bangladesh T20? I reckon the Bangers are going to mash the Pakistanis. It's not one of the famous pens. Are you referring to this famous pen, the one with the cool torch on it? Cam and I spoke this morning about a very cool pen that I got given from one of my reps that I'm very excited about. It's not so much the pen that I like, although it's a pretty cool pen. It's got a torch on it, which I think is ridiculously handy. And I've been using it to hunt for fry in some of the fry box tanks and for Daphnia and stuff like that. So, yeah, I really like this pen. The pen itself's okay to write with, but definitely this torch is awesome. You'll have to ask your rep for one, buddy. Yeah, so that's where we're at with the limited edition free stuff. Again, it probably won't last very long, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe at a max, but it won't be very long. So, yeah, that's just a token of my appreciation. Thank you very much to everybody who's been purchasing from us. Our newest podcast is due to be released this afternoon as well. We're probably looking at doing it around about midday-ish, give or take. So today's podcast will be with Josh, also known as Aquamate on YouTube. He is an Australian YouTuber, fish keeper hobbyist, just like you and I. We had a pretty good conversation, what must have been about 4 or 5 months ago now, just about his hobby and the hobby in Australia and things like that. So it was very interesting. It was great to get a different perspective of different aspects of the hobby in a different part of the world. So very much well worth a listen if you haven't already watched the video on YouTube or here on Facebook. So yeah, well and truly worth a listen. It should be out about midday today, so it should be good times. That is all that I've got on my book today. Like I said, it wasn't a heck of a lot. As far as our live food production goes, the microworms are going ridiculously well at the moment. Put down another tub of them, or about to put down another tub ready for them to go this morning. I'm just waiting for the potato to cool down before I put them in there. So we've got a couple of decent size 10-litre containers going for them as well. So they are ready to sell. So if you look for microworms, they're good to go. We've got 3 decent sized containers of white worms going. One of them is cranking, not quite ready to harvest, but we're not too far away from. The other 2 are just taking their time a little bit. The other 2 are bigger than the other one, which might mean why it sort of feels like they're taking their time. There's probably a lot of worms still in there, but again, they're not ready to harvest. but they're getting close. They're eating all the food that goes in there within a week, so they're definitely chowing down on that. Daphnia is slow and steady. It's coming along nicely. Unfortunately, I dropped one of the corridors into the Daphnia bucket the other week, and I couldn't get it to the next morning, so it chomped down on the Daphnia overnight. So that took a bit of a hit, but it is what it is. So it's going along nicely as well. And I've got a very, very strong lead on some blackworms and a very, very strong lead on some, what was it? Vinegar eels. So I'm happy with that. So hopefully I can get them in a couple of weeks. All going to plan, we can begin to produce some good numbers to feed the fish here, and then also to be able to provide for the general community as well. So that's where we're at with the current live food production. No plants have yet died. I ended up finding I can see a retap thing. Fill the tank with tons That's a bore. Oh dear, which one is it? Is this one of your display tanks in your shops? Or is that one you're just fiddling around with, playing with? And yeah, I think Ryan said that he had vinegar eels. However, he hasn't come back to me saying that he has any for me or anything like that. So yeah, I've got a pretty strong lead for those two at least. So hopefully I can get them here in a couple of weeks' time. So that should be a good time. And yeah, I think blackworms would also be great, Brian. Seems to be a really, really good nutritious live food that are very common across the world and just not so common here for one reason or another. So I've never tried to grow blackworms. I'm not expecting me to be able to nail it the first time around, but we'll see how we go. It'd be nice if I could get a decent production going. Even if it's just enough to be able to provide for the shop, that's a good start. But yeah, hopefully we can get decent numbers and then be able to move some around and get other people growing them and moving them around. But not only that, but feeding into their fish, because from all accounts, it's a ridiculously good live food for plenty of fish. So yeah, fingers crossed they go all right. We get them and can produce some decent numbers of them. The seller on Trade Me that is selling vinegar eels. I haven't looked on Trade Me for a little while. I'll have a look at that. Although, like I said, I'm pretty confident with the person that I'm getting them will have them. So, yeah. Thoughts on the freeze-dried Australian blackworms? I haven't tried them. I would like to try them. I haven't really looked too deeply into the product package size of them, but I would definitely like to try them. I think they'd be a good addition to freeze-dried foods that get fed out. I quite like the freeze-dried tubifex worms as well. Yeah, I haven't got too deep into them, but I would like to definitely get some and give them a wee trial, see how they go. I'm sure that the fish will enjoy them. But yeah, I'm not sure. So I haven't looked too deeply about the punnet sizes, container sizes, whether or not they are worthwhile. Some of the bags look pretty big, which might be good for people that have got bigger fish rooms, but for the everyday hobbyist with 3-4 tanks, it might not be such a good idea. So it just depends on what size they come in and what sort of price point they come in as well. So yeah, we'll see how we go. Yeah, I would definitely like to try some. So yeah, even if it's just a trial in the shop with the shop fish, see how that goes. But we'll see. Yeah, definitely keen to give it a go. And if it works out pricing wise really well, and it works out size wise, which I think will be logical for a majority of the consumers, then I'm definitely keen to keep giving them a go and stock them. So yeah. All right. So as we've got nothing else, I am very much enjoying this conversation. So if we've got some more things to talk about, we can do that. I guess I can update you with the moss experiment that I was playing around with. The Java moss seems to be going really well. The Rickia moss, not so much. So it hasn't seemed to enjoy going to immersed. I know it can be grown immersed from what I've read, from what I understand, but the method that I've used isn't quite doing it for it, unfortunately. It's all browned off. all browned off really badly, to be honest. But the Java moss is going well, so I'm going to clean out the Rickia moss. I've still got more that I was growing in a small little container, a small aquarium, so I can try again with that. I might just try a slightly different method. Do a little bit of reading, talking to a couple other people, and see how we can go with that. But I might, for the time being, replace that with peacock moss because I have a decent supply of that in the shop already. That's already growing immersed, so I might be able to grow that a bit quicker. And I wanted to maximize the amount of growing size that I had going, or growing space that I had going on with those little tubs. So I'm going to put some Java fern down as well. I've got plenty of broadleaf Java fern, and I've got a metric truckload of needle-leaf Java fern at the moment as well. So I'm going to put some of them, one in each tub, and try and get them growing quite nicely as well. So that's the plan essentially for this afternoon or today. Once I've done all the important worky stuff, I'm going to have a wee fiddle around with some more plants because I enjoy that. The Fluval E series coming back into stock very soon, actually. I placed an order for it earlier this week, so they should hopefully be here next week, maybe. It was only the E200 heaters, not the E300, so I haven't seen them available again. So all going to plan, I'll have some E200s here maybe late next week, depending how the freight system works. So fingers crossed, they'll be here soon. And yeah, it's good to see them back in. I think they're a really good series heater. I've got a lot of them running through the tanks out here. I think they are great that they come in with an inbuilt heater cover. I like the fact that they're black because all my backgrounds are black and they blend in really well. I like the LCD display on it. Green, blue, red. If you're too cold, it's blue. If it's too hot, it's red. If it's just right, it's green. I like that it tells you that it's got not a lot of flow going around it, and you can just turn it up and down by a little flick. So I think they're a very, very good heater, very, very smart, very intelligent, and it'll be cool if we've got the 300s back as well. But for the time being, I believe it's just the 200s, but that is okay. So yeah, fingers crossed that we're back here next week. Right, so my thoughts on ethically collected wild fish. I am personally okay with ethically collected wild fish as long as they're sustainably harvested. Take the cardinal tetras, for example. From my understanding, it'll be nearly impossible to over-harvest them in the wild for the way that they go upstream in the dry season. They're basically unable to be caught. It gives them a time of reprieve and gives them an opportunity to spawn from all accounts and then come back in massive numbers. So for the cardinal tetras, for example, if it's not dwindling numbers, if it's ethical, it's not being used with cyanide and all that kind of stuff, I'm all for wild caught fish. If the fish itself is endangered, I'm okay with being wild caught if they are being used to reproduce and put back into the wild. If they're endangered, I'm not okay with them being wild caught and put into the aquarium hobby. I'm not down for that. If they're being overfished, again, I'm also not okay with that. So it needs to be sustainable and it needs to be very ethical. Not so keen on like the cyanide type thing. I don't think that's giving anybody a good chance, the fish or the fish keeper in the long term. I definitely think there's a place for it. There is mainly for the communities that are catching these fish that are needed to obviously feed their family and whatnot. So I think there's a lot of moving parts on it. But as long as it is sustainable and we're not talking about endangered fish, then I'm all for it. And I have no real issue with it. Again, if they're not being caught sustainable, then that's not okay. I mean, you can look at whitebait, for example, which is obviously quite a touchy subject here in New Zealand. You're kind of either for it or you're not, but there's a lot of species of the whitebait that are becoming endangered, critically endangered, and people are just catching them by the hundreds and the thousands just to get a feed out of them. And I'm not really okay with that. I'm not massively okay with whitebaiting. I think there needs to be a way forward, of course, with it. But yeah, just to get a feed like that, I don't think it's worthwhile. I don't think it's a good thing. And 10, 15 years down the track, there's going to be none, and everyone complain, well, we had our opportunity 10 years ago to make a stand and to sort that out. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on wild caughts and sustainable breeding. Absolutely, that's key. Whether it be to repopulate the waterways or whether it be to populating people's aquariums. So yeah, that's where I am with that. No, I've never kept a short, thin eel. My cousin once caught one, and we ended up, because we had a body of water in the backyard, ended up being chucked into there, but it lasted about 2 days, so obviously he didn't catch it very, very well. He was very young at the time, sort of 7 or 8 or something like that. But no, I've never kept shortfin eels. I've never kept any New Zealand native fish whatsoever. I've always been interested in keeping a New Zealand native tank, but I just haven't got around to setting one up with a chill or anything like that, or doing enough research into them to doing it. But I think they're very fascinating, and I think you might be as well involved in one of the New Zealand native fish keeping pages, and quite enjoy looking through that and looking at what people are doing with their aquariums. But no, I haven't kept one, and I haven't done a New Zealand native tank yet, but it is definitely on my agenda at some point to do one. Good morning, Judy. How are you doing? Regarding the question that you asked about getting the notifications, I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I will have a wee look at that. It's probably above my pay grade, but I will see if I can work out how to do it for you. I don't really use YouTube a lot, but from my understanding that if you do subscribe and push that bell thing on YouTube, that anytime we go live, you should get an email or something along those lines, which is what you said you did. So I'm not quite sure what happened there, but I will do a little bit of looking into that for you. But yeah, I think what you've done is what you've meant to have done, so I'm not 100% sure on that. And I have zero intention in selling fake plants, Cameron. But in saying that, I was looking at them on one of the suppliers' websites yesterday, thinking, well, maybe I could. So maybe your dirty influence of fake plants is getting me closer to being over the line on that. But yeah, we'll see how we go. All right, so that might be it. I'm sorry, Judy, you might have just turned up right at the end of our live video. Yeah, just to run over what we talked about before. If you haven't already joined our email subscriber list, we've got some pretty cool stuff going on at the moment, some exclusive deals for email subscribers. So if you're not in there, get amongst that. And yeah, I will actually talk to that one there. If I could find some really nice ones that were realistic, I would potentially stock them, because also Brian makes a really good point that fake plants are good for cichlids that like to be real ones. I totally agree with you. All the ones that I've ever put my hands on, they just don't seem to give me that this is really close to real sort of vibe. They always seem plasticky and weird, and they don't seem to look that well. Again, this is just my own eyes. But I do agree with you, fake plants are good for cichlids that like to eat them, severums and whatnot. And if I could find some that were really nice and really realistic, then that would probably push me over the line. Much like the Plico ceramics, I think they're a really nice ornament, very practical as well, but they're really nice, well made. And I would be okay with carrying some ornaments and fake plants if they were very close to a natural look, as opposed to pirate ships. Hate on people that keep pirate ships. It's in your house, it's in your aquarium. You can have it looking exactly the way that you want it, but it's just not for me. It's not something that I'm really interested in stocking. So that's where we're at with that. Yeah. So that'll be it. Don't forget, we've got the podcast coming out later on today, as well as that. And don't talk about pirate ships. I said treasure chest, not pirate ships. Yeah, so the podcast coming out this afternoon or about lunchtime today. Corridors are getting pretty close to being ready to sell. We should be able to do them on a decent price as well. And yeah, so that was pretty much it. So I don't quite have my guest lined up for next week. I'm still working on it. I'm very, very close to getting a person over the line that we have been trying to get on for about 6 months. Our schedules and our times just don't quite match. So we might be able to get him for next week, fingers crossed. Other than that, I've got a couple other people that we're looking along the pipeline for as well. So at this stage, no one lined up for next week, but I'm getting very close. And on that note, if there is a particular topic that you want me to try and engage somebody with, I know discus breeding was a big one, which I've tried a couple of people, haven't been able to make the schedules and the time work out, but we're trying. But yeah, if there's any particular topics or people that you would consider really interesting to have a conversation with, then I'm more than happy I'm not going to talk about fake plants. I'm more than happy to try and to breach that conversation with somebody and get people on that you guys want to hear from. So, yeah. And yet you're right, Brian. The Plico Ceramics Aquarium Caves are very, very nice. I'm very interested to try that with some corridors a little bit later on down the track. I think they're absolutely perfect for that. And I also really like the small natural caves. I think they're just phenomenally shaped, phenomenally sized. I've got a few out the back we've got our bristlenose, and they just seem happy as in there. So yeah, I'm absolutely loving that particular line of products. So very happy to be stocking it, very proud to be stocking it. And on that note, a couple of months back, we spoke to Yuri from the Plico Ceramics company. If you haven't seen it, it's up on YouTube as well. It's well and truly worth a watch. He's a very, very passionate fish keeper and very, very passionate about what he does with his Plico Ceramics. So well and truly worth having a wee watch of that. Okay, so I'm now going to go. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Have a really good weekend, everybody. Have a good one, team. Happy fish keeping. Catch you later. Thank you, everybody who was involved today.